I'm exhausted. We're
I bet.
live. So
No.
this is funny. I leave the country on the 28th, and I just got invited to the White House on the 27th.
Oh no.
And in order to change my ticket, they want to charge me $4,000.
Oh my gosh. Because it's so close to the day.
So it
How
looks
much
like
is it
I,
worth to you?
right? It looks like, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, that's annoying. All right.
Yeah,
So
bad timing.
I'm here with my friend Emily Jones, who is the founder and CEO of Home Tribe and the founder of the Home Tribe Education Conference, which is coming up at the end of October in is it Northern California? Yeah, Redding would be Northern California. So Redding. And went to the event, the rally at the Capitol over the weekend against three bills that are coming up in California, which are all abysmal. My favorite is the Pedophile Empowerment Act, or HB 495. That's my favorite.
Yes. Yes, so that was the primary focus of the rally for sure. And I've definitely heard it been touted as the trafficker's bill or trafficker's dream. So that's definitely, again, that was the focus of the rally. There was a lot that happened in Senate appropriations. So the first day that we were there, I believe it was the 18th, we were in Senate appropriations for 88-4, which drastically cuts funding for charters, and then went into AB 495, which had strong opposition as well. All three bills went into the suspense file, along with AB 727, which is another terrible traffickers bill that is a Trevor Project. If you're familiar with the Trevor Project, there is a horrible text mechanism, the Trevor Project. It's going to be required to go on to all of our 7th through 12th graders' ID cards at school. And that is a pipeline to trafficking online. So a couple of the constituents inside of the office opposed this bill because they themselves went on to the Trevor text mechanism and they added a fake name, a fake age, and they were able to get on there and talk to people with a fake ID. So that, in conjunction with Bill AB 495, is just a horrific thing that needs to be stopped in California. So we're really happy that it's in the suspense file. They're going to talk about the fiscal impact of the bills there. So we're hoping that we'll go to die. If it doesn't go to die, we have a really small window right now. So
It
to
passed the
call,
House, right?
I'm sorry,
They passed the House, right?
I don't know. It
Oh,
went
oh,
back to the suspense file. AB 495?
went to the suspense file, which means that they're just going to look at the financial issues regarding the bill. And there aren't like that's not going to be meaningful because basically to clarify for people, AB 495 is a bill that says that any adult can claim guardianship of a minor, of a child, just by filling out a paper and saying that they should be the guardian of the child, and by checking off one of two boxes. One box declares that they've spoken to the parents and the parents have okayed it. And the other box says, well, I tried to reach the parents, but I couldn't reach them, but still I should take guardianship. And so the idea behind the bill, I mean, it's sort of posturing, but my gosh, if they win on this is huge for them, the evildoers. They're posturing, they're saying, oh, ICE is cracking down on illegals. And if the illegal parents are deported, somebody has to be able to take care of their kids and somebody has to have the wherewithal to make medical decisions for the kids and school decisions for the kids and all kinds of things. And the problem is that if this goes through, then literally anybody could be making decisions for any child without having to notify their parents. And that's really the crux of the issue, is the parents need not be notified, which is in itself so egregious. to think that anybody could literally do whatever they want. I mean, they're already doing it. They're already driving kids to Planned Parenthood for abortions without the parents' consent. They're transing kids behind parents' backs without the parents' knowledge. I mean, they're doing these things in the school. And so to them, this doesn't seem like such a far cry. They're like, this is perfect. This makes perfect sense. We're already doing this. Let's just codify it into law. But Emily, you had a different take on that.
Yeah, I think in theory, this could be terrible for Californians, but I think in practice, I put out a post and I just wanted to ask the logical question. If you actually think that administrators in your school office would hand off your child via an affidavit and trade your child in trade for a piece of paper, why are you at that school? And Sam, you and I have had a lot of conversations about the mistrust all throughout the United States, but now especially in California, with public education and even private education. And so although there was overwhelming opposition and people came in droves all throughout California, I just challenged that narrative. If you're here and you're so afraid that your administrative office would do that, you really need to run now. Run and homeschool. The main argument I saw and a lot of the commentary that we've had, and I talked to a lot of people at the Capitol steps, and I'm glad that I did. Their argument is that they can't afford it. But I think that it makes the perfect avenue to come together as a community and form free or low cost options in the form of co-ops. You're such a huge homeschool advocate yourself. This is right up your
Yeah,
alley.
here's the thing. People say that they can't afford it. And you ought to ask them, okay, how much is it? What's the number that you can't afford? Because there isn't a number. They don't know the number. They know that they can't afford the alternative private school because the private school is expensive. Like, they know private schools are expensive. They probably haven't even done their research into the private schools, but let's say they have. But the people who are saying homeschooling is too expensive, well, they clearly don't know what homeschooling is, because you can homeschool for pennies a day. I mean, seriously, it's depending on the age level of the child. And now the internet is virtually free. I think you have to concede that it's free because everybody has it already. So it's not an added expense. To educate a child it's just not expensive. If you want to talk about like extracurricular activities, okay, maybe your child doesn't do basketball at the school and you have to find something else. But even that is like, take him to the park. He can play basketball at the park or whatever. So I know that what I'm stumbling across, and I haven't shared this with you, I talked a guy into homeschooling his kid because he said to me, oh, I don't think I could. And I said, but you're taking your child to work with you already. He has a 6-year-old little boy who goes to work with him because he's a contractor. And during the summer, there's no other place for the little boy, so he takes him with him. And I said, you got the perfect setup. And he goes, but I wouldn't be able to like do the curriculum with him. So I said, what curriculum? Well, he didn't know. He just thought that there was a curriculum. And I said, there isn't one. You design the curriculum. You can purchase curricula online, like you can purchase it, but for a 6-year-old, like I wouldn't recommend it. 6, 7-year-old boys, they don't really need curricula. They don't need to be schooled. They need to be educated. They need to learn stuff. You do stuff that your little boy should be learning. Like, it's a lot simpler than most people think. And so it's very frustrating to me. He's like, there's no I just figured that the school had like some curricula that they impose. And the other thing that I want to ask people, because you bring up such a great point, if you're concerned that your administrator would like hand your kid off to a complete stranger, why are you there, right? Well, think about this. Where are the nefarious people who want to get at children going to go? Aside from the schools, like they're going to go to the schools, right? They go to the Girl Scouts, they go to the Boy Scouts. NAMBLA, the North American Man Boy Love Association, had on their website, one of the best places to recruit young boys to sodomize or whatever is the Boy Scouts. So we have to be aware that the people who want to do harm to children are targeting our schools. They're going to our schools. Now, where do you think they would prefer to be? a public school or a private Christian school?
I'm not sure. I've heard horror stories in both.
This is my point. It's like, people think that if the school has the name Christian on it, that somehow it's a-okay. And I'm going, you've just put a target on your school, right? We're a
And
Christian school. Like, you've just actually put a target on your school.
yeah, and I just think it goes a layer deeper. I've seen and spoke with so many people, and there's so much fear, and I feel as though it is the product of us growing up in the public education system. We're just taught to shut up, be quiet, follow orders, and our common sense has really gone out the window. Our critical thinking has gone out the window, and we're so afraid to take the reins. And so we're almost debating if it's worth it to take the risk to send our child to public education just to gamble and see if someone would trade their child in via an affidavit. And I'm just like, just skip the line and homeschool your kids or find another option. And a lot of parents, you're right, they don't know about the options. And there are lots of loopholes that are perfectly legal, especially in California. If you're a parent that
Yes.
needs to work, if you're a parent that can't afford private school, there are charters that are small classroom-based charters that you can go up to 5 days a week, and they have certain bylaws when they're being created that allow you to go into school full-time, but they're considered to be optional in seat. That's perfectly legal right now. And so that's an avenue. It's kind of an underground railroad.
There are charters that will pay you to homeschool
Yeah.
your kid because they collect the money from the state. That may be shifting with school choice and stuff, but they collect the money from the state and then they shoot up, they get $8,000. So they give you $1,500 because it's worth it to them because they don't have the brick and mortar to support. So they'll send you a computer, all the textbooks you want, and a little stipend to go take your kid to the zoo and the museum and stuff. Like, there's so many different ways to get it done. You got to do a little bit of legwork, but it is so odd to me. I mean, odd is not the right word. It's sad. I talk to young families, and they not only are they not even thinking that they would homeschool because they can't afford it. Like, they're already just of that mindset. But the kids in daycare, because they both have to work. And I'm like, you need to set up your life so that you don't have to not take care of your kids. Like, you need to reconfigure your expenses and your lifestyle so that you can spend more time with your kids, because 50 years from now, you will regret the not spending time with your kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm a huge advocate, especially for mothers, to be entrepreneurs so that we can have a flexible schedule and then opt into those co-ops and trade time. I think trading time is so valuable because you have that camaraderie, you have that close community, and you can rely on your community. And that's why we are breaking at the seams in California. We have just handed off our children to government-run schools, and we've decimated our communities. And I would argue that you should be in opposition just as much with Bill AB 84 as you were rallying for AB 495, because AB 84 is going to strip $1 billion in funding from California's state charter schools, where a lot of homeschool parents we saw lined up at the door to oppose. There weren't as many as AB 495 though. And that's obviously that's a connection to the government. Your argument is just don't connect to the government. And after witnessing everything that's gone on and how we're fighting so hard right now at our Capitol, I agree with you. I really am on now leaning the side that we should not be taking this, because it's just so hard to fight when they want to pull the rug from you and pull that funding. And we've gotten accustomed to relying on the government for that support.
Right. And it's interesting because now the charter schools are still the minority. And if they don't somehow organize good representation, then democracy is going to work against them, right? Because the mob rule, we don't have a democracy, okay? We have a representational republic to avoid this kind of thing. But in this case, it's going to be mob rule. It's going to be, the popular vote that might strip them of their funding. And then what are they going to do?
Yeah, and it's a delicate ecosystem. All these charter schools, this will affect 220,000 residents in California that rely on homeschool charters and vendors. But it's, again, a very delicate ecosystem because small businesses rely on these charter schools to be funded. I mean, I go to a local like child experience in my town, and there's a list right at the front desk of all of these local charter schools that are accessing this small business. Therefore, the funds are transferring to this vendor in order to operate. So I hope that AB 84 will just die. Where it is a suspense file right now. There was overwhelming opposition. We have one vote, I think, to sway and to kill this bill. But right now, if you guys are concerned about any of these bills, especially, AB 495, AB 727 that strips your parental rights, you should be calling up until the 29th, your local representatives and opposing these bills in California, because it's not, just because we rally doesn't mean it's over.
And by the way, like I need to point out to everybody, it's super important to the rest of the nation, because whatever happens in California, everyone else is going to look at it. Just like everybody looks at Florida, everybody's looking at Virginia. Like every state is an example to the other states. So it's not like I'm sitting here in Florida and I'm going, well, lucky for me, I don't have to worry about this. I'm actually extremely concerned about this. I'm more concerned about stripping parental rights than the funding question. I'm concerned about the funding question, but the parental rights is, to me, it's the seminal issue of our day, because there is such a push towards pedophilia. And, I got a glimpse, I've gotten a glimpse now of Sodom and Gomorrah, and it is headed our way. Like, if we are not saying that it's here yet, because I think that it was probably much farther gone than we are just yet. But pedophilia is, they wanted to have sex with the angels. Children represent angels in our society today because they are the innocent. And of course, they wanted the angels because they were innocent. They were blameless, And so that's what children are. And these people are relentless. They're bloodthirsty for these kids. And so when you strip the parent, look, I'm not saying that every parent is 100% perfect. What I'm saying is every child ought to, and has a parent. Every child has a parent. The parent's job is to protect the child. I'm not saying that every parent does that with, full efficacy, but at least let's give the children a shot at a parent that's willing to protect them. And I'm working on behalf of Parents Demanding Justice Alliance. These are parents who did step, in the gap and try to protect their children. And they had the full force of the United States government come after them, the FBI. And we can't have that in this nation.
Yeah, and I'm a little saddened by our church leaders in California. I have to say, the overall sentiment was like, leave California. Well, where are we going to go if everyone's looking at California and they're telling California to leave and disperse? What kind of example is that setting for the rest of the United States that has all eyes on us? I know that California is, again, coming apart at the seams when you have a reality TV star coming at Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you've seen Spencer Pratt's work in the LA fires, because Gavin wants to create LA 2.0 after the fires decimated the coast. He's actually, Spencer and his wife, she's a pop star. They are podcasting from their ruins in the Palisades and going against Gavin Newsom. And he's even got a shirt saying, Spencer for governor. So I understand that we're perceived as the laughing stock of the United States, but I think that we really, as leaders, need to take a stand and not tell our citizens to run away, and open our churches. If we have big churches and large platforms, open our churches and bring in experts. I was really excited to see Heidi St. John talk about homeschool. I didn't expect that, but I'm happy she was there spreading the good word about homeschool, because I don't think that we should be leading with fear.
Heidi is a stalwart, and she's done it herself with her several children, and she's a great advocate for the cause. She runs a homeschool resource center, which her aim is to basically franchise it, but not necessarily from a business standpoint. More just, she would love to see this idea take off across the nation. And the homeschool resource center is like a YMCA. for homeschoolers. So you have a community of people who are educating their children themselves, which means that they're putting family first. And there's a ton of resources there. So they have animals that the kids take care of. They put on plays. So they have drama clubs and classes, and they have music lessons because they've installed all of the equipment so that they can offer these services to the families and their children. And they have classes. And so they have teachers who work as, say, independent contractors. So it's not really a school. It's just, I'm a teacher and I really want to teach physics. And so I want to offer a physics course for high schoolers or whatever. And that's such a great idea because it enjoins the community. It becomes a community-centered thing that families can join in with. And I mean, this is one of the problems that I think we have in our culture is we've become very splintered and separated. And it's a beautiful thing what she's been able to do up in Portland with that. But you also had Jack Hibbs speaking at the rally. And I mean, he's a big proponent of all of this as well.
He's definitely drawing a crowd and opposing AB 495. I just don't agree with his call to action. I don't agree that if AB 495, thank God it's in suspense right now, and they're talking about, the impact fiscally, hopefully it'll die there. I don't agree that if it does pass, we should flee California. I fled California, and our livelihood was decimated because Gavin Newsom for 6 months told us we couldn't go into our small business. We sold our home. We moved to Florida for 4 months, and the grass isn't always greener. I'm sure Florida has done a great job with parental rights. They have their parental rights bill for public education, but we tried out public education for 2 weeks, and every single day they had fire drills, and my children were terrified. And there was a fence around that school in Naples where we were at. So we were just, why did we move here? Like, the answer is homeschool. It's
I did not know
homeschool.
this about you.
Yes, there have been a lot of happenings.
Yeah. So, and I honestly didn't know that Jack Hibbs was saying you need to leave California, but I think the idea behind it, not that I'm trying to rationalize for him, but take your tax dollars away from California, and punish the state basically for doing this. But also, I mean, honestly, if it passes, protect your children, and the only way that you're going to be able to do that is by leaving the state.
I believe that. I think that the timing also of this message is horrific. We have so many arrows at us as California residents to leave, and I think that it's a huge land grab strategy. And so I don't think that this message of his came at the correct time. I think it came at the worst time possible.
I can't disagree with you. And I will say that the world is not laughing at Gavin Newsom. He's very busy rebranding himself, and he's very effective because he has a look. It's not a look that appeals to me, but it is a look that is appealing. And he's very busy rebranding himself and trying to add in some humor and stuff. And so, it's great that some people are sort of taking him on and trying to spread the word. I just saw, I think it's, anyway, a friend of mine produced a documentary about the fires because his house burned down. And apparently day 2 of the fires, they had all the resources that they needed to completely end the fires. But they refused to avail themselves of that. And so it continued to burn. The winds abated, and they had the resources, and they could have done a tremendous work to not allow more houses to burn, and they didn't. And it's suspicious that there's a plan for 2027 for a new city or a new sort of planning for the Pacific Palisades area. That's
what a coincidence.
Right? That's just weird. That's just weird. So yeah.
My family has been at the epicenter of all tragedies in California, and that's why I become a lot more vocal, especially this last year, and seeing how brave, a reality TV star can be and use his platform for good to go against Gavin Newsom. Our house almost burned down. Our house almost burned down in the car fire. My grandmother's whole area burnt to smithereens. We had people having to rehouse from the Paradise Fire. The entire town of Paradise,
The entire town.
just a
I
stone's throw
remember
from
that.
us, was completely leveled. We took them in. And so this has just been, I believe, an orchestrated tactic. And, Gavin Newsom will never have my vote. But I still feel very led to stay. And I feel very led to try to sway people with large platforms to encourage our citizens to go to the Capitol. I was, for the first time, my eyes were really open about the impact that we can make as residents of California to just go and show up and use our voice, simply use our voice, stand in line and be a presence. And that really swayed the opinions of the people that were in the hearing, that were in charge of either putting these bills forward or putting them in suspense files. So that's why I'm hopeful. And I think that there's a renaissance. I think that we need to bone up on our history. This was the first time I've been in the Capitol for like decades. It's beautiful. The history is so beautiful. It's breathtaking, actually. And it just I don't know, it makes me sad. It makes me sad, but it also makes me hopeful. And that's why I felt really blessed to be with the people at the Capitol. And I just felt so proud to be a Californian. It's been a long road for people here. But yeah, I'm hopeful.
You're getting emotional.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I don't think you've ever seen me cry.
No.
You've known me for a while, but
it's a beautiful emotion. You should have pride in your state. I left because my house almost burned down. I'd been trying to leave for a long time, and then God almost burned my house down. And I'm like, okay. And I rented the house out. But yes, I recall all of those fires that you just mentioned. But the Pacific Palisades fire, I mean, Paradise was a travesty. That was very poor leadership. And we've had very poor leadership in California for a very long time. But Palisades really took the cake, especially in light of what happened in Malibu. And so California has some very big problems. And, they tried to recall Gavin Newsom. Wasn't it Larry Elder ran to recall Gavin Newsom and replace. And, California is populated by people who vote wrong because they don't pay attention. And now they've got Bass as the mayor, and she presided over the Palisades fire, and she will probably just get reelected because they just pull a lever. They just do what they're told.
So long, people didn't show up. You can go into that office and you can make relationships with these people. You don't need to ask permission. And I have been watching Denise and Tara at Freedom Angels, and they've woven themselves into the community. It took a really long time for them to be accepted, to have their voice heard. And I'm sure it was really hard work for them. And it took 5 years for them to have their voice heard and how to be respected. But we're just everyday citizens that can make a difference. We don't have to be in politics. We are the people, and our voice does matter to them.
I'm going to speak to that for just a minute, and then we'll sum it up and finish. But we go to school and we learn that the teacher has all the power, and you're not supposed to speak out of turn, and you need permission to ask a question. And the authorities are the authorities, and they're in their offices, and you don't go approach the principal. The whole setup gears us to think of government as sort of otherworldly, like unapproachable. Okay. So what you're saying right now is going against at this point, it's just innate in us because we had 13 years of that paradigm structure of you don't speak to the authorities, they speak to you. And so school is really the antithesis of the American experiment. So I'm glad that you're saying it, and people should take notice, and you should go to Sacramento and you should tour the city because it is beautiful. The Capitol's an amazing place. And you should go into the Capitol and you should go into people's offices and say, oh, what district are you? I'm in this district and I'm looking for this person, and go talk to your representatives because they work for you.
And that's why I really believe that it's a revolution. And I think that it's an eye-opening revolution where everyday citizens are saying and seeing that we can take back our power and just simply walk in and be a presence. And yes, it is intimidating. It's scary. But the more that you do it and the more that you engage and have civil discourse and civil conversations with these people, they're just humans at the end of the day. They want to be swayed. They want to know what the public opinion is, and they want you to debate. But for so long, there was nobody there. So what do you, if it's all Democrats, what do you expect them to do
Fair
if they
enough.
don't have if they
Good
don't have
point.
opposition?
It's a good point. But ultimately, you had a good weekend. It was encouraging for you.
It was encouraging. I met a lot of old school veteran homeschool moms, and they talked about their being sad that their daughters and sons were putting their children in public school and wishing that they would have taken their lead and done homeschool. So there was a lot of those conversations. There was a lot of questions about what can we do if these pass. So I was there, at the steps, providing solutions for them and giving them alternate routes and, showing them the laws about California homeschool. So I think overall it was a really hopeful and positive experience.
And did you get a lot of interaction about the Home Tribe conference that's coming up that I'm so excited for?
Yes, we met with a few leaders. I think that they'll be added to the speaker lineup. So we're really, really excited to share them on the lineup. And we handed out tons and tons of papers, QR codes for the conference. And people are really excited. A lot of people from Reading came. There's a lot of people from Sacramento that took the pamphlets. So it was a really cool group to be able to grassroots evangelize for this conference. So we're excited.
That's great. I'm very glad. Where can people go who are watching right now?
So they can go to hometribe.com. That's where the entire platform is. HomeTribe is a platform. You can download the app that connects families, educators, and providers together for educational experiences and learning experiences of all kinds. The conference link is on there. The conference is October 25th and 26th. You'll be there as a keynote. You'll be doing the debate, and I'm super excited. You'll be debating your stance on homeschool, and then yeah, we do a lot of advocacy, and we really like to teach you about the laws. And now I'm just really personally excited to emphasize that we need to be at the Capitol and fighting for our rights in California. So that's the road I'll be on for the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Emily Jones, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, everybody. Just remember, speak truth, speak it boldly. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.